Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome back. It's Thursday and you're here for Mr. Eric Reads, and I got a book for you. It's a classic character that I think you'll know. It was created by Jeff Brown, but this story was authored by Lori Houran. Now that doesn't mean anything to you. You want to know about Flat Stanley. And this is the tale of Flat Stanley Goes Camping, here on Mr. Eric Reads. Stanley Lambchop lived with his mother and his father and his little brother Arthur. Stanley was about 4 feet tall and about a foot wide and a half an inch thick. That's right, he had been flat ever since a bulletin board fell on him. There were lots of good things about being flat, though. Stanley could put on sunscreen with just one swipe. And Stanley had the best back float at the pool. Stanley had the loudest belly flop too. But sometimes it was hard being the only flat kid in town. "I'm sick of being flat," said Stanley one morning. "Flat is lame." "Lame?" said Miss Lambchop. "Why, some of the best things in the world are flat." "Yes, unlike this newspaper," said Mr. Lambchop. "And fried eggs and bacon and pancakes," said Arthur. "I guess so," said Stanley. After breakfast, Mr. Lambchop started loading up the car with tents and sleeping bags. "Where are we going?" asked Arthur. "We're going camping," said Miss Lambchop. "This family needs some fresh air." "All right!" yelled Arthur. But Stanley, he barely smiled. After a short drive, the Lambchops arrived at the Roaring River campground. Stanley was helpful as usual. He helped carry firewood. Stanley blocked the wind so his mother could start a fire. But Stanley just wasn't himself. He wouldn't even eat any s'mores. "Too flat," he muttered. "Why don't you two go exploring?" suggested Mr. Lambchop. "That's a good idea," said Miss Lambchop. "Just don't get lost or fall off a cliff or touch any poison ivy. Have fun, dears." Stanley and Arthur set out. "Hey, animal tracks," said Arthur. "Let's follow them." So the boys followed the tracks along the river, through some trees, and up a steep hill with a cliff on one side. "The tracks end here," said Arthur. He peered over the cliff. "I wonder what kind of animal made them." Arthur?" said Stanley. Arthur turned around. "Skunk," he whispered. "Let's get out of here." But the boys were trapped. The skunk was on one side and the cliff was on the other. Then the skunk raised its tail. "What do we do?" Arthur wailed. "Mom said not to fall off a cliff," said Stanley. "But she didn't say not to jump off." Suddenly, Stanley grabbed Arthur by both hands and he jumped. "Ah!" screamed Arthur. Then Arthur opened his eyes, and he wasn't falling, he was sailing. Above him, Stanley's body made a perfect parachute, and the boys landed with a gentle plop. That was awesome, said Arthur. Thanks, said Stanley. Now, where are we? Arthur and Stanley looked around. All they saw were trees. We're lost, said Arthur, and it's getting dark. Then Stanley spotted something. That's the river, he said. Our campground is on the river. So the boys ran to the water's edge. About a mile downstream were two cozy lamb chop tents. What can we do? It'll be dark before we can walk that far, said Arthur. I know, said Stanley. So Stanley got a running start and he belly flopped into the river. Splash! Then he flipped over on his back. Climb on! Woohoo! Cried Arthur. I always wanted to go rafting. Arthur and Stanley made it back safely to camp, drippy, but safe. Let's keep this to ourselves, said Stanley. I can't believe we got lost and went off a cliff, Arthur said. At least we didn't touch any poison ivy. There you are, said Miss Lambchop, just in time for supper. That night, Arthur whispered to Stanley from his sleeping bag, You know, if you weren't flat, you couldn't have saved us today. Stanley smiled. Maybe being flat isn't so bad. And then the next day, Stanley found out another good thing about being flat. He could put on poison ivy cream in just one swipe. The end. Flat Stanley Goes Camping, Thursday night, Mr. Eric Reads. Hope you guys enjoyed this story, just like I hope you enjoy all of them. Come back again tomorrow, we'll have another book and maybe even a little guest reader with me. Stay safe, wash your hands, and please continue to practice kindness. See you guys around.